evening, everybody. My name is Michael Mason, for those of you that don't know me. I'm here with our panelists this evening, David, Tina Willis, Ronnie Binser and Carol Dodsley. I'm just going to hand over to David and let him do the introductions.
Thank you, Michael. And before I do the introductions to the guests, let me just kind of make an opening statement of why we are attempting to do what we are doing. Marketing and its subsequent sales are about creating customer touch points. And each of us in our daily use of Google Plus technology, including Hangouts on Air and YouTube's, we create thousands of touch points every day. And now most of us are ready and willing and desiring to present ourselves to advertisers and to marketers. Some of us already have in the HOAs in the form of sponsorships. We, in reaching out to those advertisers and marketers, they are very interested in reaching the audiences, the viewers that we create every day, and the followers that we have on Google+. So we present a very, very powerful positioning. However, and it's a big however, in us agreeing to use the Google technology, be it a Hangout on Air, be it a YouTube, we have to agree to terms of service. There's not a question about that. And therein lies the challenges that each of us have as we try to monetize whatever it is that we're doing. So we've invited to address this issue tonight experts in their field, and I'm just going to go down the line with the individuals as I see them on the screen. Carol Dodsley. Carol, would you take a 30-second elevator speech about yourself, please?
I certainly will. Hi, I'm Carol Dodsley, better known to a lot of people as the G+ how-to girl, and I'm a G+ and Hangout specialist, and also it's either there or there. You can see I recently became a Google+ top contributor as well. I spend most of my time on Google+ and Hangouts and help other people to actually dive in, use them, and see real results and raise their visibility for their business.
Thank you. And Michael Mason, would you actually come back again and put what it is that you do in perspective?
Sure. Quite a lot of people watching will know who I am. You'll see the lower third there that says hosted Hangouts, and that's because David and I are working together on that to actually use hosted Hangouts as a delivery medium to take Hangouts into websites, Facebook, and produce Hangouts exactly as we're doing here. And that's pretty much it for me.
Okay, thank you, Michael. And Ronnie Binser, please, can you do a 30-second elevator speech, Ronnie? Is that possible?
I will. I'm Ronnie Binser. I'm known as the Hangout Helper. I help people use this magical communication tool called Hangouts and Hangouts on Air. You can find me at thehangouthelper.com, and you'll see tons and tons of my postings online. I have a wonderful membership group if you'd like to join. Everybody's in there helping each other learn how to use this wonderful tool together. There.
And thank you. And I should say, too, that I am a proud charter member of Ronnie's Hangout Mastery. And thank you for all the great information that you supply to us, Ronnie. And going next down the line, we have an attorney, Tina Willis. Now, I am sure, being an attorney, she will have some disclaimers that she needs to make with her presence this evening. So, Tina, we know that you're an attorney, but would you like to share the proper disclaimers? Introduce yourself with the proper disclaimers.
Right. I get 30 seconds and I have to include my disclaimer.
No, you can have a little
No, I'm
more
just
than 30
kidding.
seconds because
Okay,
you're an attorney.
thank you. No, my name is Tina Willis, and I'm a personal injury attorney down in Orlando, Florida, but I became an attorney. I first was licensed in Georgia in '97 and worked for large defense firms. So, interpreting contracts is within my realm of comfort. The disclaimers that I need to give are that first of all, I'm not licensed in the state where the jurisdiction that would apply to this contract is California, and actually other states. Not to get more confusing, but it could play out a little differently state by state. But in general, contract principles are substantially similar from one state to another. But I would just say that if you're really going to rely on this and you totally, want to take it to the bank, then you need to go and have someone look at your specific factual situation. And also, this is, I haven't done the careful research I would normally do to answer a question. I've carefully read over the documents they've sent me and can give you my thoughts on that, but there are some things that I would like to read that I haven't had a chance to. So, the bottom line is it's a little bit off-the-cuff opinion, and total reliance on it would be a mistake. So.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Now, it's what I'd like to do is first, Michael, if you would share your expertise from the technology perspective, then I'll ask Carol and Ronnie to give us the practical applications of how we use it and their interpretations of what it is and how we do it. And then we'll kind of get involved in some discussion that way. So, Michael, if you will talk from a pure technology perspective, what are the things and the challenges
Sure.
That you have as you try to create your hosted Hangouts?
Yeah, well, but part of the problem from my point of view is the terminology, and that really confused me to start with. I started a post some time ago that kind of got a lot of traction from different people, and I was trying desperately to get a handle on what you can and what you cannot do within a Hangout. And anybody feel free to jump in if I'm making a mistake here. When you start a Hangout, hit the broadcast button. So it's a Hangout again. But that video goes to YouTube. As such, it's controlled by the terms of service. All the other videos I have on this policies, terms of service.
Excuse me, Michael. Michael, there seems to be some folks are making some comments about audio. Can you just do a quick audio check?
Someone's saying
yes,
they can't hear Michael when he's in split screen.
Right. I've turned the audio back on now. Apologies for that. I'll give the brief summary of what I was just saying then.
It's all right. Nobody heard you but us. We'll hear it again.
Fine. Yeah. I use the term.
Thank you, Ronnie.
I use the term live streaming media to cover Hangouts on air. Yeah, sound is really low now, apparently. Oh.
Let's go over to Ronnie or me because we've both got big mouths.
Right. You guys know what it is we need to cover. But basically, I'm trying to define the differences here between a Hangout on Air, a YouTube live stream, the content, the service, and what a pre-roll or a burned-in advert is, and the definitions of all those things. What do you guys think?
Let me.
I wanted to say that we discussed this before we came on, and I was immediately concerned. I haven't read what you said about the terms for the live. I mentioned that I hadn't seen that, but for example, and Carol mentioned this, and I'm looking now at the policies and principles Google Plus Hangouts on Air, additional terms. By using Hangouts on Air, you agree and accept to be bound by the Google Terms of Service, the Google Plus User Content and Conduct Policy, the Privacy Policy, the YouTube Terms of Service, as well as the additional terms and conditions of this agreement. So they have incorporated, we call that incorporated by reference. They have incorporated by reference the YouTube Terms of Service into the Hangout on Air additional terms and conditions. And I am guessing, although I haven't seen them, I would fall out of my chair if they didn't have something precisely that kind of language in the live streaming, whatever you're talking about, the separate. Now this what I'm reading applies to Hangouts on Air, and if you're talking about some separate thing, I haven't read it, but you know, my belief is that YouTube Terms of Service are incorporated into everything you do on Google Plus related to Hangouts, whether you actually link them to YouTube or not.
Yeah, but when you run a Hangout, when you hit the broadcast button, it becomes a YouTube video, so therefore it's covered by the YouTube Terms of Service, I would say, no?
But does it?
No, but by the definitions that Google is giving us of the Hangouts on Air, they incorporate the YouTube Terms of Service. So it seems to me that you wanting to, instead of broadcasting on YouTube, you're going to broadcast it somewhere else. And I believe that because you're using the Hangout on Air service, you still must comply with the YouTube Terms of Service, even if you are hosting it somewhere else.
So unfortunately, this is going to be a problem area for the remainder of the show. So let's just pretend that we don't know, because I believe there truly are differences between a YouTube live stream, which is different than a Hangout on Air, and I don't know that.
Terms of service. I mean, there may be.
In the terms of service, yes. And that's the point that Michael was wanting to bring up, but honestly, because you have not had time to look at that, it's not fair for us to say something different. So let's just talk about the big overall concepts and forget about whether it's through a YouTube Live versus a Hangout on Air and the differences between that, and just talk about the basic overall concepts, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
So Carol, do you want to bring up any suggestions or comments that you had?
No, I mean, I was going to say very similar to you there, Ronnie, the fact that I don't think it really matters, and I just want to say everything I say tonight is my opinion and my understanding, not anything that I have any information from anybody else, and don't take my word for anything. This is my understanding of what we're talking about, the same as everybody else is here. So that's my disclaimer very quickly. But to me, I don't think it matters whether you're running a Hangout on Air, whether you are using YouTube Live and live streaming through it, or whether it is afterwards a video, because to me a Hangout on Air doesn't become a YouTube video. It streams through YouTube and uses the technology, but it becomes a video at the end. But I don't think that matters, because we are using the service, which is when we run a Hangout or anything else, we are basically under the terms and conditions of Hangouts, YouTube Live, and YouTube. All of it is cross-referenced, as Tina said, and I think we have to look at it across the whole perspective of it doesn't matter at what stage you are, it doesn't matter where you're streaming, how you're doing it, what software you're using, you are under those terms and conditions. Boom. That's my opinion.
Ronnie, can I interject a statement before yours? One thing I would like to make clear was that Google was invited to participate this evening, and it wasn't a real aggressive kind. We just ping somebody. I ping somebody with a name that I was given, somebody at Google who could comment. So it would have been very advantageous for them to be here, because the bottom line to it all, it doesn't really matter what we think. It's what they think and how they execute their terms of service. So just interjecting that, Ronnie, please.
So here's what I see as the concerns that why many people might be tuning in. There are people using Hangouts on Air right now and saying this show is sponsored by ABC Company, whatever it is. And they're not being shut down yet. And so the question is, are they doing something that's okay, or is it something that's just not found out about yet and it will eventually be a problem? And that's what we were trying to bring to the fore, is this area of confusion and trying to bring some clarity, but honestly, probably by the time we're done, you may be more confused than you first started. So I think that happens sometimes with the legal stuff. And so what I'd like to do is point out that there are certain terms and conditions or terms of service, and there's certain ones that we can find that will tell us specifically the words that we don't want to hear. Okay? Then the question is, what do we do with that? Because my experience to date, and this has been 2 years running with Hangouts on Air, is trying to get an answer from the people I know at Google, and they will frequently say, I am not an attorney, I will not answer that, I cannot answer that, and they basically leave it at that and say, go read the terms and terms of service. So it's up to us to try to understand what those words say, but the net result is, if they're not going to turn us off for doing it, then I suppose we might as well do it. But again, this is me I'm not telling you go do it, I'm just simply saying, so far, I've not seen anybody being shut down for saying this show is sponsored by this company, even though the terms of service seem to say we're not supposed to do that.
Well, and there's the whole issue too. I think it's very clear that when somebody does do that, they also put it in words in the event stream. Usually, this show is sponsored by. Once again, there's another touch point out there, and I've seen folks very clearly say sponsored by, and then it might even be a link to their site or a link to a landing page or something. So that it's very clear. I don't think people are trying to hide the fact, and they can't. And you bring up a great point, Ronnie. We do it, and I guess we'll do it as long as we do it, and then Google says you can't do it anymore. And then we fight, well, why can't we do it anymore? And so I don't know. We've got to get some common grounds of understanding. But like you say, it's experts like yourself and like Carol who have been dealing with these things for a long time, and we look to you for the answers. Well, Ronnie told me I could do it.
Well, here's one of the biggest things that I think most people are wanting to know. They want to know, or at least they've asked me many times, is can I put the graphic of the company that's sponsoring me on my lower third? Can it be a custom graphic overlay that shows up on screen? And my best understanding of the ad policies of YouTube say, no, we're not allowed to do that. But it appears that we are allowed to take a physical box and say, you know what, I really like this thing right there. This is a physical item. Others will tell me, no, you can't do that. And so it gets really tricky, but my best understanding at this point is the virtual overlay is not allowed. That seems to be pretty darn clear if you read the words. Yeah. The box doesn't seem to be very clear whether I can have that box or not. For example, also the physical thing I've got behind me that says Hangout Mastery all over the place. If that's me, and because it's my own company, I think that's not considered a sponsorship. But if that was somebody else, I still believe, and they were paying me money to have this banner behind me, I still believe because it's a physical item that I'm actually allowed to do it. But I'm open for discussion with other people, whereas having it on this lower third banner, I believe is considered an overlay, and there are very specific language saying no, not the overlay, is not possible, or not allowed.
Does our attorney have a comment?
Well, I hate to be on a show with Ronnie Benser and not agree with him.
That's okay.
I really do.
Bring it on! Bring it on!
No, I really do. I know why he believes that, and I think it's a fair, I guess, layman's interpretation of what I read. What he's looking at, specifically references lower thirds, graphic overlays, and everything related to what's on the video. The problem is that what was that from? I forget what
the ad policies where it talks specifically about the overlay. Not
right,
including but not limited to.
Right, which I looked at right before the show, and then that said those things would violate paragraph 4 of the YouTube Terms of Service. And as I mentioned, I believe the YouTube Terms of Service also apply to Hangouts. And so the question isn't just whether displaying the box and the background would comply with the thing you read, but also would it comply with paragraph 4 of the YouTube Terms of Service, which, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but, it says that you cannot, I'm not reading all the intro stuff there, but essentially prohibiting the sale of advertising, sponsorships, or promotions placed on or within the service or content. And so I believe even if you didn't even have a box or a background or anything, but you were paid as being a sponsor, you're on the risk level. Now, I will tell you, you're in the risky zone. I will tell you that I discussed this issue at some length with Stephen Feuderall, my co-host on Legally Speaking. We probably talked about it for an hour today. And then debated back and forth. He feels there's some ambiguity in some of the terms of the contract, and I can just tell you some legal principles that ambiguities are construed against the drafter, and this is also what's called an adhesion contract, which means that it's take it or leave it, and so courts would interpret that in your favor. But you get to the reality, which is there are a few bad things. YouTube can change this at any time. First of all, they can change it if they feel something's unclear and they really didn't intend for you to do any sponsorship, meaning even just saying, my sponsor is, with nothing, anywhere. They don't want you to get paid to sponsor these things. That's one argument. But so they could change that to make it more clear. The other thing is, even if you were right, and you sued them. Meanwhile, they've pulled down your show. Your audience is gone. 2 to 3 years later, during a lawsuit, you get a judgment that says you win, and your audience is all gone. So you really haven't helped yourself. It's kind of like it's kind of hard to win against YouTube in a practical sense.
Sure. Let me
I did have an idea. Okay, go ahead.
I was going to interject. There's been long before Hangouts on Air ever existed. I've been around YouTube forever. And there's a little checkbox that says paid product placement. And so there is something built into YouTube and the capability for me to say, the maker of this blue water bottle has paid me money, and this is a paid product placement is in my video. And if I check that box, that allows other advertisers to realize, if I've got the yellow bottle, I can advertise against that, I'm okay, or I want to stay away from it because there's a blue water bottle there. So there's some methodology built into the system of YouTube that allows us to actually have a paid product placement. And so this is what causes confusion with the idea of saying we can't do it at all, because there's a checkbox that allows us to say we're being paid to show a product.
Well, and that's what we were getting into, that there's a whole separate set of terms for, YouTube's method of allowing you to monetize. Essentially, I think what you're talking about is they allow you to run ads of their choosing. I think isn't it kind of like AdWords? That you see those at the bottom of YouTube videos.
You can add.
That's different.
It's, okay.
I assume, I have not read those separate things. Now, whether there's some ambiguity in there, that's kind of another show. I'd have to read all of those and tell you whether, okay, there's some ambiguity. And like I said, even if there is ambiguity, how does that really help you? If YouTube decides they don't like what you're doing and they pull it down, okay, so you're going to go to a lawyer, pay a lawyer, pursue a lawsuit, and, those things take years. And meanwhile, YouTube is controlling that you have no audience.
Right, that's understood. We could basically say no, and that'll be the end of the show. Okay. But
well, no. But I actually do have a suggestion. No, I did have a suggestion because we were really banging our heads trying to, help. We understood the purpose, and that people want to be able to do this. We were thinking in terms of lowering your risk that you're going to have a problem. Now, as David first of all pointed out, people are doing this and they're not pulling it down. I wouldn't interpret that to mean, based on reading this, that it's okay. It's just that they aren't policing it, which is their right to do. I mean, they don't have to enforce the terms of service. But beyond that, let's just say that they decide to start policing it and they really don't like what's going on. The sale of advertising, sponsorship, or promotions. Now, the safest way to monetize, in my view, is to use what YouTube is set up to do that with, and that's what you were just talking about. The next safest way, from my perspective, is possibly having the show on behalf of whoever it is, or being that sponsor essentially becomes a co-host. So, for example, let's just say Disney World. We're having the Disney World Tina and Steven show. They are one of the co-hosts, and then you could thank them for doing the graphics. I mean, I'm not saying that this would 100% come within this, but I would just avoid the words, just to be safe, the word sponsorship, the word ads, but, to say this is a show by, in other words, I don't know if that's making any sense, but it's like basically a company could hire me to have a Hangout on air, and they could pay me as an independent contractor or as an employee to do that. And so basically, and you could still host it on your channel. I don't see a problem with that in terms of how they've laid this out. Now, again, they could change it, but that is one idea in terms of just...
Great idea, Tina. It's a great idea.
So avoid the word sponsor.
Yeah.
Well, I would do that, and not just that, but it's brought to you, in collaboration with, for example, well, I don't want to use any specific sponsor examples because I don't want to get anyone in trouble, but
if I were to say it and say, that way you're not getting in trouble, I'll be getting them in trouble. But remember, I'm not a lawyer, and you're not getting any legal advice from me because I don't even know how to do that. So here's an idea, is to say, in conjunction with Blue Snowball, I've got some really good stuff here, or I really like the Blue Snowball thing. I could just say I really like it. I don't have to say that they're sponsoring it. That's just me endorsing it, basically.
Yeah, and I mean, that still may be a problem because by the definition, if they are sponsoring you, to me, there's a difference between sponsoring and actually helping host the show. For example, if what you have been calling a sponsor is actually doing your graphics and stuff, they are actually helping you. It is partly their show. And whether you could get paid, and so I would to me, that at least might not raise as many flags, and so could be a little bit safer way of approaching it.
If I might interject a question, Jeff C. had interjected a question, and it's getting a lot of discussion going internally. How do other big shows like Leo Laporte on Twit TV get away with having a pre-roll and sponsors? Do they have a special relationship with YouTube? Good question. I don't even know if we know the answer to that question. Ronnie, maybe you know the answer to that?
I do not know the answer, but I would assume that they do have a relationship with YouTube that they have worked through such that they are allowed to do that, and in essence they're saying they have a paid or product placement scenario.
And maybe to Michael's early point, that they might have 10,000 subscribers, and so that puts them into another category. I don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Because if somebody's, there's lots of big shows out there, and you do see them with sponsors or with placements or anything, and I mean, obviously we don't know, but I'm assuming if they have so many people and viewers and subscribers that they're going to be in a different league to the people that are out there that are running a simple Hangout on air the same way that a small business is running it or individuals are running it. So you probably got different leagues. It's like with everything, isn't it? There's the people, Toyota, who are actually partnering with Google Plus at the moment for the post ads. They're there beta testing it and trying it all out and going all out with everything. So I think that would presumably be in a different league.
Sonny Cadwallader, I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly, Sonny, brings up an interesting point. If I say partnership with or in partnership with instead of sponsored by, am I okay with that? There it is. And technically, that's what I have, a media partnership with a company to do several Hangouts leading up to a digital sports conference. My lower third doesn't include their logo, nor does my header. I do include pictures in the detailed sections. Any comments on that, Ronnie? Or Tina, do you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I could comment on that if you want me to, but Ronnie's...
I would like you to.
Go ahead.
Well,
sure.
Go ahead, then, please.
Well, we actually were discussing it in terms of a joint venture, which is a specific legal term, but partnership also. All these terms bring in all sorts of laws that come with them. The issue with that is that if you then assume some liability on behalf of that company. If you are a partner or a joint venture and something is sold, well, then you can be sued if there's a problem with that company. Do you see what I mean? So it's like, yes, you can partner with someone, and I wouldn't even have a problem with the graphic overlay from the way this is written. If you're a partner with someone, I mean, you're a partner with them. I mean, you can be a partner with someone and have a hangout. I don't see a problem with that. And also, but again, it gets into the liability issue, and that's where I thought of, in terms of a lot of the social media folks that may work for companies and stuff, if you are actually employed by or an independent contractor, and those two terms are different. One, independent contractors have less the company would have less control over an independent contractor, but they still are essentially hiring the independent contractor to have the hangout. And so that carries with it less liability issues than the partnership joint venture thing, where you're assuming partial responsibility for, if you're a partner, then you're a partner in all sense of the word. Do you see what I mean? Okay, so you're throwing out,
where Sonny's asking, can we replace the word sponsored by with partnered with or partnership with, and you're suggesting if you do that, you now take some legal liability for what that company is doing. So
yeah, I think so, yeah.
Another question then would be, and I know we're straining at words, but that's what it seems that lawyers do, and what you
Sorry about that.
Yeah. So what about the idea of being assisted by? So if this company that is in essence, I don't know how to say the word other than sponsoring me, and I can say they're
right.
assisting me in running the show, is assisting, you think, a word that might have less legal liability from me going back to them?
Well, I just want to clarify that the bottom line is going to come down to the reality of what's happening. If they can argue you're sponsoring, then that's what the word defines. I don't know that the actual, assisting is better than sponsor. I'm not sure that it's going to definitely take you out of it. I don't think I can parse it that finely. It's just that what I'm saying is, for example, not to do like an inadvertent shout out, but Greg Trulio and Carolyn Capern had something recently, which is really cool actually. In Orlando, it was I think it was a Mazda dealership. They had a hangout on air for the Mazda dealership, and they were there being the hosts, but it was, Mazda's hangout on air. That to me, even though they're there, they're getting, I assume they were getting paid. Maybe not, but anyway, they could have been.
You say getting a free Mazda is getting paid, then I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know, but I'm saying, and it was a great concept, and I think they were safe. Now, the further you get from that, it has to be just carefully planned, and I don't know that. Saying assisted is better. It at least maybe won't raise YouTube's flag, but whether it technically you are sponsored or not, what I'm saying is if you get into the concept of just if this company is one of the hosts. They aren't sitting there maybe, but for example, our sponsor does our graphics, and so they are helping us host the Hangout. That we are the hosts in terms of sitting and speaking, but we can thank them for the graphics, say that we love their product, and we're staying away from the word sponsorship. So yeah, I don't know that I mean, I definitely think assisted is better than sponsor. I don't know that I can give it the 100% seal of approval. Right. It's just, it comes down to sort of how you're, I mean, I think they can help you host the Hangout according to this. They can help and be a host without physically being live, and it can be on your channel, and in my view, it still doesn't cause you a problem. Now, you know, I read somewhere on here, Google or YouTube says, don't go to try lawyer up on us. Don't try to look for loopholes or try to lawyer your way around the guidelines. So, you know, that's probably what I'm doing, but...
of course,
well, see,
of course what you're doing.
In another sense, if someone assists me, that could simply be them paying me money so that I can keep the lights on and I can buy the equipment to actually do the Hangout because they've paid me money. That is actually assisting me to do the Hangout.
Yeah, and we actually discussed that too. I mean, how much you're getting paid, and is that just covering your costs? But if you're actually making a profit, but I don't think it comes, I think you can still make a profit. I think you can actually get your costs paid, make a profit, as long as you are doing it in conjunction with them. It is partially their show, and I don't know how to say to do that other than it's the Ronnie Benser and Mazda show, let's just say, for example. And then during the show, you're saying, thanks so much to Mazda for helping me do my graphics. I really love my Mazda. I drive it every day, and it's awesome, and move on. And then, and to me, that's not a sponsor so much as it's a co-host. And I just, to me, that's something that can be done to play with this. So.
Okay, so if we could shift on to another idea, because now we've brought up the concept of some of the terminology, then we might want to adjust how we say things. That's one thing. The next thing has to do with this overlay. Okay, and to me it's pretty clear that the overlay is one of the things that they don't want us to do, but what if they are assisting us? Do you believe that the overlay now is going to be something that could be done? Anyone?
I just, as you started to say that, Ronnie, I was going to say something else before, but something that I think is somewhere in the terms and conditions, that everything in your Hangout has to basically be yours. You own it. Now, something I'm thinking about, you mentioned earlier about your Hangout Mastery backdrop. Now, if you bought your sponsor's backdrop, you own that backdrop, but they pay you to buy it. So, sort of, they're still your sponsor, but if you have officially purchased or you officially own that, they've given you that backdrop, does that put you into a completely different scenario because you own, because it says you have to, the host is fully responsible for the Hangout, for the content. You know, if I'm hosting a Hangout and somebody walks in the room with a radio on, it's my responsibility to shut that radio off really quick because I'm the one that will get into trouble, not anybody else. So if we're saying about not being able to have sponsors, but if I own what I'm being paid to showcase, does that completely change everything? So I can now have a backdrop because it's my property. I own it. I don't know. It's just a thought.
Ronnie, you want to take a shot? Or I've got another question, a good question from the audience.
My only thing is...
You say my question wasn't good.
No. I've got another question from the audience.
An additional question. So
additional question.
To me, the backdrop, whether I own it or it's been given to me, is still one of those physical things that's part of the way the video is actually being done. And maybe I'm not clear as to why that's a bad choice to say that it's okay if there's something physical there. But it appears to be over the years that seems to have been the answer, that instead of, I could have a bottle of Coca-Cola sitting here, or I could have this thing which is called a UE Boom. It's a Bluetooth thing, and I'm just talking about this because I like it. Now, if they've actually paid me money to talk about this, and the fact that I like it, there probably should be some kind of disclaimer, right? And then when there's a disclaimer, then you bring in all kinds of other things, because now we've got, this is it sponsored or not? And so these are part of the concerns that I still don't know that we have a real answer, unfortunately.
Okay. Anthony Dunn asks a really good question I'd like to throw out there. What impact do you think that AdSense direct campaigns will have on all of this discussion? Looks like that would be a great way for Google to end all of this and just embrace it. Good question. Ronnie, you want to take a stab at it, Carol?
I'll do a quick one. I know that when you put a video up, when you're done with your Hangout on Air, and this is where you actually do get a difference between the YouTube live stream versus a Hangout on Air. With a YouTube live stream, I can actually have a commercial stuck right in the middle of my show. That's something that YouTube Live lets me do that Hangouts on Air does not. And so let's just push that aside for a moment. With a Hangout on Air, when we're done, we have a video. And that video, I can, on my YouTube channel, I can say I want to monetize that or not. And when I choose to monetize it, then AdSense gets involved. If I don't choose to monetize it, then AdSense is not involved, and therefore I'm not sure how all that's going to work together if I don't choose to monetize it, which is actually my choice lately.
But also, if you don't choose to monetize it, there are some instances where they can actually still put an advert there. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I know that even if you're not monetizing, there are instances where they could put an advert in front of your video.
They do that only if there are products. For example, if there's music in there, which, by the way, we probably shouldn't be doing anyways because of copyright concerns, but if there's music in there, the copyright holder can choose to automatically add an advertisement to your video because you use their music, and that gives them that authority for that. But as far as just YouTube adding an advertisement in front or behind or in the middle of my video that I put up there, I've never seen that happen, just because they wanted to. It's usually tied to the fact that there was content in my video that was actually owned by someone else, and they decided they wanted to put an ad on it versus taking it down.
No, there was somebody that I was talking to a couple of months ago, and she had a video that there was an ad on, even though she had unticked monetization, and she didn't have music or anything. It wasn't to do with that. And there was somewhere, I mean, I'm not someone who sits for hours and hours and hours and reads terms and conditions, but I do read quite a lot, and I read that one at the time, and there is something somewhere, there is a very small clause somewhere that I would have to go and really dig deep to find it again, where they can. But that's not really what we're talking about anyway, but I just wanted to bring that up, that there is that opportunity for them without it being the AdSense involved.
Okay.
Ronnie's looking, no, I don't believe you, Carol.
No, I don't, but that's okay. I mean, we can have disagreements. I mean, and there may be one instance where it'll happen. I've just been around YouTube for quite a while, and I've never seen it happen. So that I'm just saying from my experience.
Yeah.
And Ronnie, I'd be glad to take a look at whatever you're talking about after the show, just for your benefit, just to, you know, the live and everything. I mean, it sounds like, I didn't know if they provide a way for you to actually have a commercial within the show. I mean, that sounds like a completely different
right, and that's why
thing.
we're saying that YouTube Live has a different sort of perspective on how things work, because you've got these ability to say at this time within the show, play this video, and this is all part of the YouTube Live thing that is not available for us to do in the Hangout on Air.
Yeah, so yeah, I apologize for that. I didn't see that link, but I'd be glad to take a look at it and you know, give you my thoughts for whatever they're worth.
We'll probably have a follow-up to this.
Okay.
I don't think we're going to be given all the answers.
Maybe the next follow-up, Google will join us. Wouldn't
Maybe,
that be
would
wonderful?
Be nice.
Wouldn't that be wonderful? And we could maybe. Interesting question coming from Wayne Meter. Twit TV, which we may mention, I guess Leo Laporte is involved with it, doesn't use HOA, though. Is that right, Ronnie, David, or Tina? Well, I don't know if Tina knows. Ronnie, do they use HOA?
I know that they've used Skype a fair amount. I don't know if they use Hangout on Air, honestly. And it could be for these particular legal reasons. I don't know.
I've never even heard of Twit TV, so it sounds like Twitter to me. But other than that, I have no idea.
It stands for this week in technology. This week in technology.
Okay. Oh, okay. So yeah, I don't know.
Leo Laporte is the master of that, I guess.
Yep.
Well, it's a good program, actually, if you're into your tech. I just wanted to jump in. There was something Carol said there about the adverts going on to a YouTube video, even though monetization hadn't been clicked. And I have the exact same thing happen to me on one of my channels regularly, because I video record artists doing cover versions. So I don't put monetization on, but yet I see adverts on there, so clearly somebody is earning money from that. And usually 4 to 6 weeks later, I actually receive a notification from YouTube at the side of each video, and it says, is this a cover version? Would you like to monetize it? So it's strange.
Yeah, and that ties into the idea that somebody owns the copyright to that content, therefore they're given the right automatically to monetize.
Yeah.
But that's again, we could go off into the straining and gnats on that. The idea is here, I think, do we think that the overlay is okay? I personally think it's not, from what I've read.
No.
And I believe that holding a product physically or having a box sitting there is, and it would be really nice if there's any way we could find out if that's actually true or not. Because that would be a way for a physical sponsor, and even if it's a product, if it's a service that somebody offers as software, make a box, right, and stick it there, and now you can have something there that maybe can be okay.
You may have already covered this because I've been doing some stuff in the background, but I don't see a problem with sitting on the bonnet of, I don't know, BMW or Mazda or Volvo and being paid to promote that, because I have, or let's say for example I'm out in the street and I'm shooting a Hangout on Air. I cannot control the signage at the back of the person that I'm videoing. I cannot control the fact that perhaps they may be in front of a Costco or, you know.
But you are responsible for it.
Yeah, and if I can jump in there, if you're holding a Hangout on Air, you as the host are completely responsible for the background, for the content, for everything. And there have been cases where people have actually been in a big event, and in the background there has been a video that they hadn't realized there's this video, and there was no noise, just the video, and YouTube have taken that down for copyright because it is actually going against all of the terms. So if you are doing a Hangout out on the street, it is your responsibility to make sure that you are not in front of something that you shouldn't be in front of that can potentially go against the terms and conditions. I mean, where you were saying, Ronnie, about the product placement, I think, and I don't want to say this because, you know, I help people use Hangouts on Air, and I want sponsors for my shows too, but I think if you really look at the nitty-gritty, it's very clear that it says you can't do it in any name, shape or form. If you are being paid for advert sponsorship, you just can't do it, because it is content, whether it's an overlay, overlay we know is mentioned specifically, but it specifically says within the service or on, and it says content as well as the service. So I think the real answer is no, we shouldn't be doing it at all, but we know lots of people are doing it, and, you know, I would say it's everybody's at your own risk. A little bit like when you talk, Ronnie, about people don't play a pre-roll video or a video that is not part of the Hangout. If you're going to do it, just be aware that potentially YouTube can take you down. And we all have to make the choice, do we take the risk or don't we take the risk?
Ronnie, I had a question for you. You're going to South by Southwest. You're going to be doing some HOAs there. Are there any of these concerns that are being raised tonight? There are things that you've been thinking about in the broadcasting that you do there?
I'm planning on doing it from the street, and I'm going to do my best to be aware of my surroundings so that there's some music being played that I will actually not do the broadcast so that the music's being heard. And so I will try my best to be careful to isolate copyrighted materials away from what I'm actually doing when I'm doing my live interviews.
Yes, Carol. Before, how can you not have music at South by Southwest?
Because I'll be there for the technology week and not so much the music week.
Oh, okay, okay. Carol, you had a comment you wanted to make?
Yeah, something, and it goes back to what Tina was saying earlier about the fact that maybe not a sponsor, but if you reword things and it's in conjunction with, one of the terms of use is that you are allowed to use YouTube for your own personal or for commercial use with your business. So if you have someone who is a guest on your show, they're potentially, they're allowed to say, I am from this business. So that would also, it's not quite the same, because Tina was saying, if they don't have to be there, and potentially they don't have to be there, but if it's a guest, you can promote your own business. So you can have sponsors that maybe make a cameo appearance on your show and say, hi, and it's great to be here, and then they disappear.
Hey, Tina, I have a question for you. Do you think the word in conjunction with is as powerful a legal term as partnering with? In other words, would it give, if I'm in conjunction with ABC Company, am I now liable for what ABC Company might do?
I don't know, honestly. We don't really break it down. We look more at what's actually happening in the law, and that's just something. I would have to research that. What I was trying to say, it's not so much the words, but let me just take sort of an extreme example. By the way, I agree with what Carol just said, that any form of sponsorship is a concern. I can't remember the way she worded it, but I agreed with what she was saying. But she said, basically, you're taking a risk. Just understand that you're always taking a risk. But what I wanted to say, what I see is a real exception to that, a legitimate, real exception that just, it isn't what we like maybe, but I think it's real, and that is a company can have their own show. And they do not have to appear on that show to have the show. It doesn't even have to be on their channel, in my view. And they can hire someone to have the show. So and it isn't so much the word you use, but just the fact that this is their show, but you're doing it for them. Or you're doing it with them. That does get into the complicating factor about the liability. And that's one of those where it's like, got to think about it, got to talk to another lawyer, got to do some research. I'm not sure. To me, for example, Stephen Futerall and I, we both have businesses. We co-host a show. I don't think that means that I'm now assuming liability for his legal clients, or vice versa. We just both, as two companies, are hosting a show, and so I believe 3 companies could host a show, and that the third doesn't have to be there. And in our case, we have someone doing the graphics for us, and so I think we can thank them for doing the graphics. And I think that that it may even be okay with the lower third. He and I will have to talk about that. But I know what you're talking about, Ronnie, and I agree. The lower third is a problem with sponsors. But what I'm talking about is this becomes someone who is also a host of the show. They are the third host of the show. And I think that may be a way that, the one little exception here, because a company is allowed to join, and just like we join as individuals, a company is kind of like their own individual. So you can have 2 individuals have a hangout. Well, I don't see why you couldn't have 2 individuals in a company have a hangout. Just because they're not there doesn't mean that they can't have it. And so in other words, and also that company can pay you. To me, now again, we're in the close area, but a company, let's just say the company were all alone. Mazda is having the Mazda show, and Mazda is going to pay Tina to be the host. They can hire me to be the host and have their show. I don't think that runs into a problem. Okay, well then why can't they also just be one of 3 hosts? And it's just partially their show. There are marketing issues that when you think about it, you may not want them to have, you may not want it to be that it's their show also. You don't want to be co-branding with them, and they might go away. And if they are going to, you want a longer-term contract with them. You want some guarantees that they're going to stick around, that they're not going to go away and steal the name and stuff like that. I mean, it does get into more complicated issues in that sense, but but anyway, it isn't really so much about the words, but the actual relationship. I mean, the bottom line is the terms are saying you can't have sponsorship, advertising, or promotions. And the question is, okay, well, but can we have a co-host or can we have a host who pays us? To me, those are different terms, and those are very specific terms: advertising, sponsorship, promotions. By the way, terms and contracts are just interpreted by plain English. So a mistake they've made, if they wanted to prevent anything, was not elaborating further. They could have excluded what I'm talking about, but they just use those specific terms, and so you could be an employee of someone,
I could say Blue Snowball is my co-host for this show today.
To me, yes, I like what you just said. Now, whether, like I said, we're in a gray area, whether YouTube's going to pull it down, but I think that's safer than what's happening right now on a lot of the shows I'm seeing.
Okay.
So.
Michael's got something highlighted here, I think. Are you going to talk about that, Michael, or is that for us to talk about?
Let me just make sure my volume is working because it wasn't earlier. Yeah, I just came across this while you guys were talking. It's in the Google support pages.
I'm getting into the dark here.
One moment.
I'm hearing you fine, Michael, at least here.
The audio's going through to the broadcast as well, I've just checked.
Okay, good.
And it says, what is the definition of a paid product placement? Which I thought was quite interesting. Paid product placements defined as pieces of content that are created specifically for a sponsor and where that sponsor's brand, message or product is integrated directly into the content. So I'm going to make an assumption there that is digitally integrated, i.e. an advert, but the YouTube terms of service say we can't do that. But it gives us an example as being one where a marketer pays a partner to specifically mention their product or brand in what would normally be the editorial part of the content. So I think if I'm interpreting that correctly, what it's actually saying is where, for example, you and I are on a show, Ronnie, and we mention, I can't think of another car manufacturer, Mazda.
Toyota. You can go to Toyota.
There you go. And Toyota have paid us to mention their brand because we're mentioning it rather than branding the Hangout or branding the live media, or we have the brand behind us. It appears to be okay looking at that wording or that verbiage.
I have a question unrelated to that. If we were to take a YouTube, we do an HOA, it becomes a YouTube video at the end. We take that YouTube video and embed it on our own landing page. We are free to do whatever we want to do on that landing page?
Nope.
Why?
There's some rules and regulations in the terms about I can't remember the exact wording, but there's something in there about if it's on your own page, you can only do certain things if there are other adverts.
You agree when it's embedded.
There is something there.
It's the embedded
you
content
agree to
policy.
I read somewhere you agree to the YouTube terms of service when you embed. Yep. I mean, that's the short version of what I read.
The summary I have here says, when you embed content from Google Plus on a web page, article or other external location, you must follow the Google Terms of Service, the Google Developer Site Terms of Service, and the following policies. And I have them all open. There's about 6 of them that you have to read through.
Yeah.
So it's easier to just say, look, if you're going to put a YouTube video on your website, don't put any advertising.
Yeah, there is a specific clause in one of those terms and conditions and policies that you're talking about there, Michael, that does actually mention about what you can and cannot do if you want to put adverts. There's a specific clause that says when you can if some sort of conditions are met on the rest of your page, but you'd have to go and find.
Right, and I can't remember where it is. They do. I think there's some allowance for ads on the page, and I'd have to look more carefully at that. But you do agree, though, still to the YouTube terms of service. But if you're talking about ads actually on the website, apart from that embedded video, I agree with Carol. There's somewhere in there, and I now can't remember what it said, but. There is some provision. I think you are able to do that in some way, but I can't say exactly what way.
Yeah. But I think that I'd like to go back to that product placement, Michael, that you just showed, because I think that is basically what you. I mean, I've only just really briefly seen that screen share you shared, but to me, that I read that to say that means that this isn't about picking up a box or having an overlay or having an image. It's about talking about it. Which, although it seems to go against some of the other terms, that product placement sounds like, reading that part, we can include it. It says in video content, but our Hangouts become videos, that we can have a sponsor. So it's a little bit like we've got a complete contradiction there, because now we can, but it sounds more like it is a verbal rather than a...
I've no doubt that the debate will rage on. And as I said, I invited somebody from Google. I've invited YouTube a few times to come along and help us. And as I've said to them quite clearly, we're not here to try and find ways of gaming the system. We're really trying to find some clarification of some of the terms and find ways that we can work within the terms of service of Google themselves and of YouTube without running into problems. Nobody wants to get their account shut down. You know, we want to carry on running videos, we want to carry on running Hangouts, etc. But we want to do it in a way that we can monetize in a way that we see fit, that doesn't appear to be gaming the system and doesn't cause problems for the channel.
Yeah.
Okay, we are at the hour, actually a little over the hour now. So if you folks would be so kind as to deliver a summary statement, and once again, I'll just go down the line as I am looking at everybody. Carol Dodsley, would you like to deliver a summary statement of some sort?
A summary statement, that's a bit of a hard one, isn't it? Basically, what I've said earlier, if you are going to have pictures, images, an actual thing, and mention sponsor, I think you're taking a risk. Looking at that very last bit, if you mention that you are being paid to mention, so you have a sponsor, we are sponsored today, and it is verbal, I think that product placement actually covers you on that. But whatever you do on a Hangout, you have to take responsibility and be prepared that you may or may not be against their terms and conditions, really.
Okay, and Michael, you are the next box that I see. Michael?
Okay, yeah, I'm here. It takes about a second to unmute myself and then drop into the broadcast. I've enjoyed it, and as I said earlier, I think the debate will rage on. Between us, we will find something that works for everybody and that is easy to implement without, being too complex, I hope, because we're all trying to achieve the same goal here.
Okay, Hangout helper Ronnie Bincer.
There is an original post that is referenced in this particular event that you might want to go look at, because there you can find the links to many of these terms and conditions as well as the ad policies that we are talking about. So you can do your own research and try to come up with your own understanding. And I honestly don't know what we can and can't do now. Thank you.
And I've saved the very best. I've saved the very best for last because we need some type of legal guidance on this. Tina, what would your summary statement and best recommendation be?
I don't know that I can give it that. I do apologize. Unfortunately, that's just the way the law is. There's a lot of debate, and it's not at all always clear. And in fact, one of the things I was going to suggest, if we have a follow-up show, you might have been interested to have Stephen Futerall. I actually was going to invite him and ask you guys if you want him, but his daughter was in surgery today. But if you just heard us debating back and forth, you would see what we kind of face. And he actually feels there's some ambiguity, by the way, in the word sale, in terms of whether you're soliciting sponsors or just being paid by a sponsor. He sees a little ambiguity there. And so anyway, I don't think I can summarize what I said, but I didn't come on with a clear, here's the clear path to success, because frankly I don't see it. I just think that if the method I suggested is maybe perhaps one way that gets around their paragraph 4 here. And I'd be interested to look at what Ronnie was mentioning. That may be completely different. I'd be glad to do it. And what else? Oh, if you don't mind my giving a little plug, we are having a
Yes,
copyright.
I mind, but go ahead anyway.
Okay.
No, I'm kidding. Go ahead and make sure.
It's relevant because we're having a 2-part copyright show, and we aren't copyright attorneys. We had to actually reach outside Google Plus to find 3 copyright attorneys who are very good, who are going to just discuss various online marketing issues. Not necessarily Hangouts on air, but we haven't gotten into copyright today, and so that's coming up for us. But yeah, I'd be glad to. Stephen Futerall and I could be glad to talk again, and you could see us debating back and forth. There's just not a clear answer. I wish I could say here's the path. I mean, I understand giving a simple answer if there is one, but I just don't really see one.
Thank you, Ronnie. Would you please put the link that you referenced in the event stream, or you said you did?
Yeah, it's already there. Michael had put that in when he built it for the original post.
Okay, and Tina, if you would put a promotional line about the copyright legal, that would be a great show for people to watch and view, or know that it's happening. Well, I want to thank first our panelists. I guess we're a little bit further ahead than we were 30 minutes ago, or 60 minutes ago. It is a complicated issue, and I guess really, once again, the bottom line to all this is, we can say what we want to say, interpret how we want to interpret, but really we do need some guidance other than the legalese that Google provides us in the terms of service, some explanation, and then do some workshops on it. Do something so that we can become better informed about what it is we can and cannot do. And as Michael said, none of us want to get shut. None of us want to fight the system and get shut down. We want to do the things that we can do so that we can create a situation, a better situation for ourselves. So thank you very much, panelists. I want to thank all of the folks who took time to listen. We will get into the stream and appropriately answer any question that might not have been answered this evening. Thank you very much, and we will see you very soon.